Alright, I know most of you watching are panicking last minute as you desperately try to write an essay in time, so we'll keep this intro short. This video will be a step-by-step English essay writing process with tips on how to write a decent paper. Papers you write for English are going to be based on a poem, book, play, or song. Just to be a jerk, I'm going to write this essay about All Star by Smash Mouth to ensure that no one watching can plagiarize anything in this video.
Ready? Go!
The very beginning of the essay writing process is what many consider the most difficult step. They're wrong, it's proofreading. Starting really isn't that hard. While you read through the literary work, you probably had some ideas or thoughts about it. If nothing but rage crossed your mind while you read the book, like I did when I read The Catcher in the Rye, then use some of the ideas your teacher or other students brought up in class discussions. If you're a complete slacker who didn't pay attention in class, go onto SparkNotes and look up the main themes of the novel. Do not get statements from online, only ideas or themes. Ideas for poems and songs are usually the meaning of the work and the metaphor used, and for books and plays it's finding metaphors, parallels, or themes, proving that they're there, and then showing how important they are to the story in the real world. Of course, this is just what I typically write, and everyone is going to have different writing styles and things that interest them. Jot down your ideas on a piece of paper or the work doc and decide which one you want to go with. Then write down that idea in the form of a statement. This is going to get tweaked with a lot, so don't worry if it doesn't sound good at the start. My initial thesis reads, the song All Star by Smash Mouth tells the story of the coming of age of a man unprepared for adult life through the metaphor of coldness. Alright, as you may have noticed, that sounds pretty jank. So let's clean it up a bit. The song All Star by Smash Mouth uses coldness as a metaphor to describe a man unprepared for adult life. Sounds good? Wrong. We need this to be more specific. Let's rewrite this. The song All Star by Smash Mouth uses coldness as a metaphor to describe how a man's childhood left him unprepared for adult life and how he learns to adapt. There, that sounds alright, but we need to make it even more specific. The song All Star by Smash Mouth uses coldness as a metaphor to describe how a man's coddled childhood left him unprepared for the adult life he was thrust into and how he adapted to it. Now that's specific. It might seem like I'm going overboard on this, but specific statements are super helpful for essays. Not only does it make your essay more impactful and unique to the reader, but it also makes your job as a writer easier. It keeps things from getting too broad so you don't get on a tangent, and it's easier to follow through on all of your points. As you write, you may realize that you're actually focusing on only a few parts of your statement, and you can specify it accordingly. It's okay to tweak the statement a little, but don't do it too much. At a certain point, it's too late for that, and you just have to stick with it and finish writing. Alright, you have your statement. Now what? Break down your statement into 3 separate examples or ideas. Take those 3 mini ideas and write a statement for each of them. Those are the claims for each body paragraph. Now you have your thesis and claims. Get those quotes. If you got the idea for your statement while reading, there are probably some quotes where the idea occurred to you or ones that just stand out in your mind. If not, better get reading. Reading through it again is easy for a poem or song, but for a book, not as easy. Here's some easy ways to find quotes. 1. Just flip through your book and look at quotes you underline for annotations. 2. Look up a PDF copy of the book and Control F certain keywords to find quotes relating to each claim. Let me just add that copying and pasting books from a PDF is so much better than copying them down from a book. 3. Look up insert book title here, quotes about insert theme/idea here, and you'll probably find some. I would not recommend the last one. Annotating is the far superior option that you definitely need to be doing if you aren't already. I know it's hard to mark up a book, I didn't like doing it either, but it makes your life so much easier. Alright, so now you have your quotes. Organize them in your outline. Match the quotes with each claim and jot down a few analysis notes for each quote. Now you have an outline. Super easy. Now comes the real work. Body paragraphs. Every school has a different paragraph structure acronym: CIRCA, SEAM, PEAL, ACE, CEC. I personally use SPA, but they're really all the same. Here's what I do when I write a paragraph. It's really simple. First, state your claim for the paragraph. Then use some context leading up to the quote. For poems, you can just say something like, in line 3, for books, try to summarize the stuff leading up to the quote, but only what is necessary to understand the quote. Only give character names if it's brought up in the quote. Just the bare essentials to understanding. It shouldn't be more than a sentence. In my Catcher in the Rye essay, I used a quote from when Holden is standing in front of the museum and reminiscing about his childhood. My context for that would be, Holden tells us about a field trip he took to the Native American exhibit at the museum when he was a child. I don't mention why he was near the museum, how he got there, none of that. Only what you needed to understand the quote. From here, most people tell you to go straight into the quote, but they're missing a vital sentence. You need a sentence in between the context and the quote. This sentence should tell your readers what to look for in the quote that ties back to your claim. My claim for this first paragraph is that the singer had an overprotected childhood. My context is, in the second verse, the singer reflects on his childhood and how much it differs from his adult life. Now my in-between sentence. The singer uses the cold to describe how protected from reality he was. And now the quote. While we're on quotes, let's talk quote integration. After the period in your in-between sentence, put quotation marks and put the quote in. End the quote with whatever punctuation is there, then put the quotation mark again. Now one space and put the author, comma, page number in parentheses, and end with a period. You need the period after the parentheses. Poetry is a little different. First off, if you have more than one line in your quote, you need to have slashes to signify the line break. Also, after every line, only put the punctuation if it's something notable, like an exclamation point or a question mark. The parentheses should go author, comma, line number. You still need the period after the parentheses. Regardless of where it's from, the most important thing about quotes is, you guessed it, specificity. Don't include more than is needed. In analysis, you'll need to explain every part of the quote, so only include what you plan to analyze. Let's get a quote from my first paragraph. Well, it's a cold place and they say it gets colder. You're bundled up now, wait till you get older, but the media men beg to differ, judging by the hole in the satellite picture. Well, that's way too much. I'm not going to analyze all of that. Let's cut out those last two lines. They don't contribute to my point much. Well, it's a cold place and they say it gets colder. You're bundled up now, wait till you get older. Those lines have a similar meaning. That could make my analysis a bit redundant. Sometimes a little redundancy is okay because it can show how vital the theme/idea is to the work, and I'm going to use this in my essay. But let's say I wanted to get rid of, and they say it gets colder, to make my quote more specific. All you have to do is put 3 dots where the sentence would be in the quote. Including too much in a quote is one of the most common writing mistakes that completely messes up your entire paragraph. While writing, remember the word of the day: specificity. Now here's where most of your writing work takes place. Analysis. Like everything I've talked about so far, analysis sounds hard, but it really isn't. You just have to break it down. Why did you choose this quote? Why does it support your claim? If you have a hard time explaining it while writing, pretend you're explaining it to a friend or family member. Bullet point or jot down the reasons it proves your claim. Then try to transcribe that into an analysis. If you're having a real hard time trying to analyze a quote in a way that makes sense, you should try to find a quote that's easier to analyze. Even if you have a really good idea for a quote that ties into your main point, that means nothing if you can't properly explain it. How analysis is written is going to greatly depend on your tone and style of writing, but there are some general rules you should follow to ensure your essay stays focused and meaningful. The best way to explain this is with an example, so let's get into writing my analysis. Alright, so I've gone through and I've basically written my first paragraph for my first claim. So, I'm just going to go through it. I'm kind of doing this without a script, so sorry if it kind of sounds a little, I have a few notes here and I've done like a little bit of text highlighting to prove some of my points, so I'm just going to go over this. Alright, so there are 4 rules you need to remember while writing your analysis. Rule number 1, this stuff here, your context, in between sentence, quote, claim, all of that there, that is just your setup for your analysis, and because of that, it's really not as important as your analysis. Your analysis is where you're proving all of your points. So, your analysis should be about twice as long as all of this setup here. You can see I went a little overboard. I made mine a bit longer, but honestly, just twice is fine. You can go longer. There's nothing wrong with that if you want to prove your point a lot. But just remember it should be much longer than your setup here because it's the actual important part where you're showing your point. So what's another really important rule for writing analysis is that you have to analyze every single piece of this quote. So what that means is you have to kind of break it up into littler pieces and analyze those pieces. So as you can see here, I have 2 lines. So what I usually do is I split each line into 2 parts or phrases that I can easily break down. So what you want to do is you want to have every single part or phrase you analyze, you want to do one of 2 things with it. You either want to have each one prove the point, and kind of show like, oh, look at all this evidence leading to proving my claim, or you want all of them to kind of build up where one sets something up, part number 2 kind of continues that idea, part 3 continues that idea, part 4 continues that idea, and eventually, like when you put them all together at the end, it shows, oh, look at this claim that I just proved. So what I did there is, this is what I highlighted in blue. I kind of showed how I continue into the next line with the blue. So first off, I break this first line into here, and I break it up into, it's a cold place, they say it gets colder. So what I do here is I say, like, you know, it's a cold place. So basically I set up, here's what the metaphor means. That's the first step I need to, since my quote is saying that the metaphor of coldness is used to show something, first I gotta say, here's what the metaphor means, here's what this quote shows. So I basically show, like, oh, you know, he's saying it's a cold place, it is the world, you know, the world is harsh, and I do all of that, right? So what I need to do next is I need to continue into the second part. So what I say here is this bleak outlook continues into the next part of the line. So I've already kind of summed up my point there. It's a bleak outlook on the world is a harsh place, and I show how this continues, this idea continues into my next part. They say it gets colder, so now I'm showing like, oh, you see it like continued from him just like describing the metaphor to now seeing the world as you grew up get worse. So I do that, and then I continue again. This next line shows how his parents choose to protect him. So as you can see, like line 1 and line 2 show kind of different ideas. They're still related and I can still connect them easily, but they're slightly different. So the next line shows how his parents choose to protect him. Now I'm kind of shifting away from the metaphor and what the metaphor means to showing how his childhood relates to that metaphor. So I talk about, oh, you know, he's talking about him being bundled up as a child, being protected, kind of showing how the metaphor shows how he was protected from reality. And then I continue saying a factor that will harm him in adult life. So I'm saying this is harmful to him. So that kind of continues into my next point, which he says you're bundled. I kind of do like a brief little connector in between the two, saying you're bundled up now, saying that this will like only last for a short time, kind of going on to this temporary stuff. And then I go, this continues the idea of protection being a short temporary practice by going into the next part where I'm talking about the next part of the line and all that. So then basically what I do at the end here is I tie all of those ideas together that I've just like kind of strung along in a chain, and that kind of sums up my ideas and analysis of the quote. So that's what you really have to do. That's why being very specific about your quotes is very important. It's because without it, your analysis kind of falls apart, because you really need to focus on analyzing every single part of the quote. Okay, so another rule that you really need to focus on is not getting off topic. Some people struggle with this more than others. I struggle with this a lot, and my pencil just flew across the room. Epic. Okay, I struggle with this a lot. You have to not get off topic. So I have this claim up here. The metaphor of coldness is used to show the singer's coddled childhood. That is going to be solely what this quote is about. I'm not like going, I was thinking to myself while writing this, you know, I could go into talking about how like there's evidence in this quote of like it's showing how it harms him in adult life. I could easily kind of just continue to that idea. Too bad, Morgan. This part here is all you're focusing on, this claim. You have to streamline yourself into focusing on only the claim. That way you can just keep your analysis very focused. That makes your analysis more streamlined. That makes your writing more clear, makes your point more impactful, and that is what we're looking for in an essay. So a way that I deal with this, I got this from my English teacher. Basically, if I see a line where I'm like, oh, I'm going a little off topic here, highlight that, come back to it later, see if I can change it around. If not, delete it. Okay, so now the final rule I'm going to touch on is an important one. No, this shows. So as you can see here at the beginning, I say, this shows the singer's childhood through metaphor. That is weak writing. That makes me seem unconfident in my point. It seems like I'm a little unsure of what I'm saying. Bad quote. Never say this shows. It's just a bad idea. Instead, I'm going to rewrite this. So it says this singer's childhood is depicted through metaphor. Instead of saying shows is just kind of like, it's like get. Like, yeah, you can say it, but it makes you seem a lot more casual and not really as sophisticated in your writing. So say words like highlighted. Highlighted is like a favorite of mine. Demonstrates, depicts, stuff like that. But make sure you're kind of rewriting it into the sentence, because just saying this shows, that implies what we already know. Yeah, we know that you're explaining the quote. We're reading an analysis, that we already know that. You don't need to say this shows. Another one, the singer is saying that. Like if you're saying the author is saying that, you might be saying like, oh, I'm not saying this myself. This is from the perspective of the singer. Yeah, that's true, but it makes you sound also kind of unconfident. So change that, take that entire thing out. The world very much resembles. There, much more confident, much better. If. Another thing, makes you look like you're not confident in yourself. Boom, get rid of it. Okay, yeah, ignore the red, it's fine. The cold represents reality. Seems much more confident, you know what you're doing. And that immediately cleans up and strengthens a lot of your analysis. So make sure you look out for this while writing. It's fine. So like some of this shows stuff you can clean up while you're proofreading. But really make sure that focusing on analyzing every piece and not getting off topic and the length of your analysis, those three things are super important. And there's an SPA. Repeat the process with your other claims until you have all the body paragraphs. Alright, got them? Now we can move on to the introduction. The intro doesn't have to be anything special. It's just the setup to introduce your statement. You want to open with something interesting to grab your reader's attention. You want your paper to stand out, to make it seem like this will be an interesting read. Think of intros to YouTube videos you watch. They immediately grab your attention, try to convince you to stick around to watch, and ease you into the content. If I had started this video with, "This is how you write an essay for school, first come up with a statement," would you still be watching? If I had said that, it would have made the video jarring and boring. These are the things that you avoid by writing a good intro. A problem you'll run into while writing intros is that you don't want to sound immature or unsophisticated. When we were first told about hooks in language arts and asked to write one, they sounded bad. You don't want to sound like you're 5 years old. Make sure your opening statement matches the theme and tone of your paper. A good way to do this is by not asking, but pondering a question or idea. For example, for this essay, my opening statement will be, "The parenting style a parent uses on their child is one of the most impactful factors in that child's development. Arguments over the best way to raise a child have been raging for centuries, and this debate can express itself in peculiar ways. Take for instance the song All Star by Smash Mouth. While at surface level it may seem to be just another lighthearted alternative rock hit, the song takes a profound look into the effect of parenting on a child through the use of metaphor. Now I have the reader's attention. I've eased them into the topic, and now I'm ready to introduce my thesis." Boom, there's an intro. Remember, the two things your reader will remember more than anything else is the beginning and the end. So make sure you roadmap your ideas in both the intro and conclusion. For those who don't know what a roadmap is, it's just an outline of your points. Most of the time this will be in your thesis, but if there's some exception, make sure that it's in your intro and conclusion. Conclusion is even easier, just rephrase your intro. You might think that this will get redundant, but remember, you have a whole essay between these two paragraphs. Remember the roadmap. People will remember the first and last thing you say more than anything else. My conclusion will be, though All Star may seem to be just another alternative rock hit, it uses thought-provoking metaphor to highlight the detrimental effects sheltering a child can have. Through the use of metaphor, the listener gains insight to the singer's childhood, his unpreparedness for adult life, and how he was able to adapt. The debate over style of parenting has been raging for centuries, and the negative effects of one style are shown in this song. The song provides a negative outlook on the effects of sheltering a child, but also provides a hopeful outlook. All Star, through the use of metaphor, provides an inspiring message that no matter how you were raised, you can adapt and succeed. In this conclusion, I summarize the points I made in my essay and then close with an idea for the reader to ponder on. Always close with an idea. It gives your conclusion substance and makes your essay seem actually important and nuanced. The essay is done. I hope you like what you've written because you're going to have to read it over and over and over again. Proofreading is not a process that you only do once. The paper needs to be proofread at least 3 times. This doesn't mean that you have to proofread it 3 times, though you should at least twice. It just means that the paper needs to be looked over. Getting a friend or family member to read over the essay can be extremely helpful. You might think that your paper is completely logical, but there may be some parts that make no sense to anyone but you. Also, because you've spent so much time with this essay, some errors won't be as obvious to you. A fresh pair of eyes can notice a lot that you won't. I'm not going to go step by step through editing my essay, mostly because I'm lazy and don't want to edit, so instead I'm going to go over some of the things you should do or look out for while proofreading. Check for any use of the first or second person. You never want to say you, us, we, or I in an essay. It's an easy fix though. Don't rewrite the sentence, just change the you or I to one. Instead of saying, we can get a better understanding, say, one can get a better understanding. Also check for contractions. Never use them in an essay. One of the most important things you should do is change your word choice. Essays are all about persuasion, and the best way to do that is with proper vocabulary. Not only does it make you sound sophisticated, but it also helps you articulate your point better. Don't use the word evil, use the word brutal, violent, corrupt, malicious, vile, depraved. They each have their own slight variation that makes your point clearer. Use thesauruses. Word has one built right into it. There's a free website for it that lets you choose the length of the word, and there are plenty of free apps for it on your phone. Clunkiness is a real issue with essays. If your sentences are clunky, it makes them hard to understand and it makes you lose credibility. You might be able to catch them reading it in your head, but you should read out loud a couple times to catch more. If you have to take a second to read the sentence or get tongue-tied trying to read it, those are signs you need to change up the sentence or break it into smaller sentences. Honestly, just read through, and if something sounds wrong, change it. For more general proofreading, you can use Word and Grammarly. I use both. Grammarly really isn't too helpful, but it's free. Word will catch a lot more errors for you, so if you can use it, use it. It's usually what I write my essays in. Make sure to check the rubric. God knows you're forgetting something. Oh no, you just read the rubric and you're 2 pages over the limit. Don't panic. An essay that's too short is easy to fix, one that's too long is more difficult. Shortening an essay is a difficult process, but it's necessary. Go over the essay again and highlight any unnecessary writing. Unnecessary writing can be categorized in 2 ways: superfluous and redundant. Superfluous writing is stuff you don't need, parts where you went off topic, or parts that don't contribute to your point as much as others. This means that sometimes you'll have to take out sentences or points that you think are good in order to shorten the essay. When you're shortening an essay, remember the phrase, kill your darlings. Another thing you can do is take out your adverbs. Words like extremely, very, and completely. Try to condense sentences. Instead of saying, he is going to be attending, say, he will attend. Instead of saying, I came to the realization, say, I realized. Congratulations, you're in the home stretch! Format your essay according to your teacher's instructions and come up with a cool title. Make a pun or express an idea from an essay. In my essay for the poem Death of a Bald Turret Gunner, I titled it A Life in 5 Lines, which tied into my theme of how short his life was and how much it is expressed through the poem. For this essay, I want something relating to coldness and childhood because of my theme. Try to come up with a ton of ideas and refine from there. If you found the title that you like, make sure to refine it so it better encapsulates your essay. You can even combine 2 titles that you love. And congrats, you're all done! Essays are easy when you keep things simple and stay on topic. Hopefully you do well in your next essay. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, leave them in the comments below.